Coming up next on Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable, Arizona's new governor is sworn in. We'll discuss Doug Ducey's inauguration speech and preview his first State of the State address as the legislature gets back to work next week. Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Eight, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizons Journalists Roundtable. I'm Ted Simons. Joining us tonight, Mary Jo Pitzel of the Arizona Republic, Jeremy Duda of the Arizona Capital Times, and Bob Christie of the Associated Press. Doug Ducey is officially the governor of Arizona, swearing in right there, all lots of pomp, lots of circum. How much pomp, how much circum? Describe the scene for us.
Well, it was a nice sunny day, a little cool in the morning. There were, I think the estimate was more than 3,000 people attended. And you had music, you had prayers, you had invocations, you had the Chief Justice administering the oath of office, not only to Ducey, but to 5 other statewide officials. So, a fair bit of pomp and circumstance.
And as far as the speech is concerned, short on specifics, but that's not really a surprise, is it?
No, I don't think any of us really expected to see a lot of details about what he's going to do. That'll come more on Monday with the State of the State address, and especially Friday when he unveils his budget. He certainly kind of set the stage for the direction he wants to take. He focused a lot on budget and school choice. Those are really the 2 big issues. That and bringing new businesses to Arizona. So I think we have a pretty good idea of what's going to take up most of Governor Ducey's time for this first session.
It seemed to push opportunity for all.
That he came back to school choice 3 or 4 different times, and in a couple of those times he said, listen, school choice isn't just for the wealthy, I'm going to make sure it's for everyone. Essentially, that's what he was saying. That was a big deal, I think, because there's a lot of criticism of the existing STO organizations and the existing school choice in Arizona that, if you live in South Phoenix and you're poor, how are you going to get your kid there? How can you take advantage of these charter schools and some of the private schools that are getting essentially vouchers in the state?
And he's talked throughout the campaign trail about what he'd say is fully funding the wait lists for all these top charter schools that have these huge wait lists and want to expand so more students can go there. And he's never really elaborated on what that means. And there's a couple. We don't have the money to do a lot. We don't have the money to really do anything that actually costs money. But there are a couple of things that he could do there. The Charter Schools Association wants the authority for charters to issue bonds under the state's credit rating, which would make it a lot cheaper. That really wouldn't cost us any money. Basis and other charter school systems want some better way for them to buy pre-existing facilities from district schools that are selling them. That wouldn't cost us any money to pass some kind of law on that. So I think those might be a couple of directions where governor might go this session.
Those directions, what about the direction of public schools as they exist, where 87% of the kids now attend?
Well, Ducey does say that, look, charter schools are public schools, first of all, and that's his focus, is public schools. We'll probably hear more about getting more money into the classroom. I think Representative Jay Lawrence is going to have a bill to that end to try to redirect, not just to reslice the pie, not to necessarily increase the funding. But we have yet to see, when we hear the State of the State address on Monday, or more importantly, the budget next Friday, what that commitment to public schools is. Keep in mind, we have a state budget with deficits, and those deficits have got to be resolved before you can start spending, any money beyond what's already being spent.
Right, and he made very clear during his State of the State, he says, listen, no one, don't believe it when they say that state government has been trimmed as much as it can be trimmed. It's going to be trimmed more, it can be trimmed more, and there's no way I'm going to raise taxes. So he's basically setting the floor. He says, I'm not going to raise taxes, and there's other stuff to cut in the state budget.
Yeah, he did say no new taxes, not on his watch, and that he was going to tighten the belt on spending. What does all this mean?
Well, I'm sure that sent a shudder down the backs of some of the folks who rely on some of the larger line items in the budget. You don't really know specifically what it'll mean. We know cuts are coming. I don't think there's any question about that, but we don't know from where, and we know that they pretty much cannot balance this budget alone with cuts. But you can look at some where the biggest budget areas are that they actually can cut, because so much of it is either protected by court mandate or just politically not feasible. But universities, more than $700 million, probably an area that's going to get hit. hard to say what some of the others are because you have almost 2/3 of the budget that it's really hard to see them going after.
It probably also means if you're a state employee, I wouldn't count on a pay raise. There'll probably be a little more pain there for the state workers, and cuts. Less, and an emphasis on making service more efficient. But I don't know if we'll see if you can cut a program and still have it serve the same population. We went through this drill, 4 or 5 years ago when the Great Recession hit, and the poster child was Child Protective Services. They got rid of a bunch of caseworkers for a while, and guess what? Cases piled up, and you wound up having a big mess that the state is still digging out of.
Any indication from the inauguration speech on how you handle this $500 million now, $1 billion next year budget problem?
There was none in the speech. We will probably get some hints on Monday, and for sure on Friday when it rolls it out, we will have a good idea whether it's going to be gimmicks, whether, they'll probably will reach into the rainy day fund to get us through this year's shortfall, which is if you exclude the back school funding or the current school funding, courts have ordered, it's about $520 million. So between some cash they can grab out of the rolling fund and the rainy day fund, they can cover that. Next year,
But I think it's important to note that I don't think Ducey's and certainly lawmakers are not counting that money that's owed to the schools as they look at the budget deficit. They're sort of setting that aside, and that certainly shrinks the size of the deficit. We still have one, but it takes it down considerably.
Well, is there not, I would expect, some kind of a plan B in case that doesn't go the way they expect? And Medicaid expansion, there could be a plan B down the road, I would imagine, if that doesn't go as some expect, I would think.
Probably. I think certainly they're hoping to try and kind of cut down on the amount of money that they will have to pay back to the schools in that settlement. There may be some kind of settlement, some sort of mediation by the Court of Appeals in the works. The judge is actually going to be bringing the parties in next week to kind of talk this over. So if the state gets lucky, if Ducey and the legislative leadership get lucky, maybe they can knock a little bit off of that, and then we're only $800 million in the hole instead of $1 billion.
Last question on the governor's inauguration speech. No escaping duty, reality, and arithmetic. Now, just in terms of the tenor and the tone of the address and the tenor of the tone of what will be the Ducey administration compared to previous administrations, is this a go get 'em stiff upper lip? Is this I'm going to be a tough guy or I'm going to be a smart guy? I'm going to go along. Who is this going to be?
Doug Ducey is going to be a fiscal realist, and if you ask him, that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, listen, I'm a businessman. I come in at this from a business perspective. The budget is the budget, and it has to balance. And we've got to fix not only these gimmicks that we use to balance it every year by rolling over payments into the next fiscal year. He wants all that done within a couple of years, probably.
I sort of see the tone as a stern parent who's just saying, look, we got limits, we've got boundaries, I'm going to enforce them, but not a parent who pulls out the paddle, if you would, but certainly because he always holds out the prospect of growth and opportunity, especially after we get over this big speed bump of our budget deficit.
Is he going to be strict? And he mentioned special interests. If they're not upset, then he's doing something wrong. Do those special interests include corrections? Do they include some of the things that some see as being more on his side?
Well, I guess it depends on how you define special interest, and everyone defines it differently, pretty much as the person who opposes them. I'm sure someone will probably be happy with the budget, someone who qualifies as a special interest, because not everyone can get cut. But I think Ducey definitely signaled that there's a lot of hard decisions coming, and he's willing to make those.
The budget, let's go on now to the session, which starts again next week. That will be obviously a major issue. Is that going to be a major issue for a long time? Are they going to get this figured out?
It depends. And now, I've talked to Senator Biggs at length, who probably will be driving the whole budget process. He has for the last couple of years, and he thinks he probably will this year. He says, listen, if we can get this, if we can get a deal early, when Governor Ducey rolls out the budget next Friday, you see the Republican leaders behind him when he announces the budget, you know that it'll probably be a quick session. I think that's probably a little optimistic because, as the governor alluded in his Say the State address, or his inauguration address, everybody has something to say about what's in the budget, and nobody's going to be happy with these cuts.
Is that how you see it as well? The idea that if we see something happen quickly, it may not be the dominating issue of the session, but if it doesn't happen quickly, everything else pales?
Well, I think even if it happens quickly, it's still the dominating issue. They'll just shut down the session early. I mean, what is the legislature's job? Their job is to pass a state budget. So if in the, I would suspect, unlikely case that they would actually have quick agreement on a budget, you might see the legislature going home early.
If we don't have a quick agreement, what would the sticking points be, do you think? Just
Well, when you have to cut that much from that many people, a lot of people's oxes are getting gored, and there's always going to be someone over there who wants to protect this or that, and those could be some sticking points. Depending on, we've seen revenue projections as sticking points in the past. Cuts to various programs. There's a lot of things. Even if they agree on 90% of the budget, there's still that last 10%, that last 5%. That we've seen that keep them there for months.
well, is there something that in the last 10% or 5% that you think may rear its head there toward the end?
Well, you just look at the group that walked out and blocked the budget last year. They were worried about child welfare. They were worried about education funding. They're not going to, they're still there, and they're Republicans, and they need those votes. So if they don't like the budget, possibly they could block it. I have no indication that, they're waiting to see too. So.
As far as things like Common Core, any indication from the governor? Obviously in the inauguration speech, not much here, but what are we expecting from the legislature on this? Is this, are we going to go around on this again?
Oh, I suspect that there'll be legislation proposing to either end Common Core or once again, undercut the funding for the test that's needed to carry that out. I don't know how far that will go. As you said, the governor didn't mention anything about that in his inaugural speech, which makes some sense. But and even school superintendent Diane Douglas, who campaigned almost primarily or largely on the issue of getting rid of Common Core, she sort of walked that back and moderated her stance on that. So we've got Common Core happening now.
And we've heard Ducey say, he's railed against Common Core all year, but we've also heard him say that, he's not going to get rid of this unless we have something to replace it. And that's a long, painstaking process. It took us years to develop this. Took us years to develop AIMS. It'll take us years to develop something to replace Common Core or whatever we call it now, if we want to do that. So that sounds like more of a long-term project. And I can certainly see it happening, but you do have to have something to replace it with. And, if you want to get that gubernatorial signature.
And school choice will obviously be an issue. I would imagine the legislature will push for more.
I expect that'll be a major issue this year. We saw last year the voucher programs. What do they call those things?
Education empowerment.
Empowerment scholarship
scholarships.
accounts.
Yeah.
There was a proposal to increase that to where 850,000 public school students would qualify. There's only 1 million in the state. So, and that, if you look at that, one of the arguments is that kind of saves some money because they don't have to give all the extra aid to those people. Then you may see some proposal like that.
Interesting. 1062, we're going to see a return, you think?
In terms of something on paper, yeah, that somebody will introduce perhaps, but I suspect that there is not an appetite to relive what happened last year, especially with the Super Bowl coming, maybe post February 1.
Yeah, I was going to say the Super Bowl is coming, but it's also going to be going, and after it's gone, is that the kind of thing we could see? I guess we could see it, but is it the kind of thing that could get traction?
It could. I think there's a lot of people who voted for that last year who said, gee, if I'd really known what it did or I'd seen what was going to happen, I would have voted against it. We've got Governor Ducey saying he would veto that or anything similar to that if it comes back. So I just don't see it getting the kind of traction it got before. Now, a lot of sessions, there's some giant explosive issue that kind of comes to define the session that we never really saw coming at the beginning. Last year was 1062, no one really saw that coming. 1070, nobody really saw that coming until, hordes of protesters started marching past our offices. So who knows what it'll be this year. It could be something that we'll remember for years and, get on late night TV
maybe
for.
Maybe it'll be the microbrewery fight. I think
that'll
would
be
just
a good fight.
Interesting.
It could very possibly be.
President Biggs to the Chamber of Commerce's forecast luncheon on Friday said, he thinks that'll be one of the top issues as the little guys are going to try to break into the same kind of business as some of the bigger guys. Our current state liquor laws have a very gradated system, and after you produce so many gallons of beer, that's it if you're a microbrewery.
If you want to have a restaurant, you better watch how much you produce.
And the same with Uber. He mentioned the Uber versus, or the ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft versus the taxi companies. Wouldn't be surprised to see that back, although there's
Airbnb, the whole how the internet disrupts the delivery of services.
All right. Clarence Carter out at DES. Any surprise there?
I think the only surprise is that he kind of lasted as long as he did. People were calling for that guy's head more than a year ago. And I remember on the Horizon year-end show last year, people were predicting that he'd be gone before the beginning of 2015. He beat those predictions by 5 days. He turned in his resignation. I don't think that's a surprise. I think what I'm more surprised by is that Doug Ducey is keeping so many of Jan Brewer's other department heads. Most governors, even when they take over for someone of the same party, you want to put your own people in, the people you know, the people you trust. And so far, we've got 8 of Governor Brewer's agency heads that are being retained, including some pretty big ones. Ducey announced Will Humble, the Health Services Director today, Tom Betlach, the Director of Access, which is kind of interesting because he's also one of the architects of Medicaid expansion. So we've got some big names among those agency heads, and Ducey's keeping them on board, a lot of continuity.
Charles Ryan at Corrections, staying on as well. But as far as Carter is concerned, you wrote a lot about Mr. Carter and the problems there at DES and CPS. What is his legacy?
As he would define it, he wanted to work the system to the point where services would be tailored to the individual, which would be a whole reworking of how caseworkers are trained, so that any one caseworker is very literate in all the different kinds of social services that are available, and they would know what would best fit person A versus person B. He made a few steps towards that, but didn't get very far, spent a fair amount of money to get studies done, but it was tested on, I think, a few families, and it hasn't gone very far. But I think, overall, it will be the whole meltdown of the Child Protective Services cases that did not get investigated.
Right, that was on his watch. Now, he tried to make this one-stop shop rollout as a pilot program about 1.5 years ago, and he made a big deal of it to where if someone enters the social service, because this is a huge agency, it does food stamps, it does unemployment, it does access, aging and adult services, and on and on and on. Basically, any social service in the state is provided through access. But each of these are different entryways into the system. And he has a really smart way of looking at it, which is, once they get into the system, we should figure out if they need Medicaid, if they need food stamps, if they need housing support, if they need aging support, and get them the services they need right off the bat to make them more successful moving out. It's a real logical argument, but there's a big, huge bureaucracy, and to get it to work
I was going to say, will the new guy coming in, and we do have a new director, do we not?
There's an acting director, Jim Hilliard, who's been at the DES for a long time, mostly on the fiscal, financial side, has been appointed the acting director.
Does he dare take what you were talking about, use those ideas, and try to implement them, or is that gone with Clarence Carter?
Well, it may, he may have no choice at this point because of the budget cuts that are coming down. They're going to have to figure out how to deliver services more efficiently, regardless. Most of these are federal funded issues, but there is some state dollars involved. And if if the governor says to all his department heads, trim 10%, period, you've got to figure out how to trim it.
Do you think, you mentioned earlier keeping so many department heads and agency heads from the Brewer administration, do you think this is one of those deals where we're keeping you on, oh, by the way, prepare?
Probably. I mean, he wants, like Bob said, a lot of these agencies are going to need cuts, and the people who've been there for a long time probably have a better idea than anyone of where you could make some of those cuts. All
right, we'll see what happens with that. Diane Douglas is certainly an interesting person, is she not? I mean, people think they know her, and then she does something, and they don't know they know her at all. This Tucson Ethnic Studies program now, John Huppenthal, explain what happened here, because Huppenthal, before he left, the previous superintendent, got tough.
Right. Huppenthal determined that the school district down in Tucson was violating a state law that says you can't have curriculum that's tailored just to individual ethnic groups. This is a long-running battle to go after what was at one point seen as Chicano studies. He said, no, this is bad. You've got to get your act in order, or by March, we'll cut your state funding by 10%. And that was like his parting shot at Tucson Unified as he left. Enter Diane Douglas, and she wants to talk to the people down there in the district, and they want to talk to her, and she's setting a more conciliatory tone.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Diane Douglas has campaigned a lot on local control. It's one of the things she doesn't like about Common Core is that it's not locally controlled. Well, if you want local control, it sounds like Tucson's got some ideas on how they want to educate their kids.
Yeah, and Diane Douglas said she wants to work with them. She talked about maybe even creating a kind of statewide curriculum based on some of this stuff. She said, if any child educated in Arizona is not exposed to the suffering, trials, and triumphs of all ethnic groups who have contributed to our state's rich cultural mix, then we are failing to teach accurate history. And that is not really the fire-breathing conservative that her opponents have made her out to be. It's a very interesting change in direction from what we've seen from, I guess, her last two predecessors, because Tom Horn did the same thing when he left office at the end of 2010, is firing that shot at TUSD over the ethnic studies program.
That said, she said, I support ethnic studies. However, I'm finding that as they are currently being implemented in Tucson, they are illegal. So you're gonna have to change them. And this is a huge difference from the old ethnic studies program, which was an immersion program. These are individual classes. Right now, they're only in 3 high schools. They want to expand it to 8. And it's part of a federal desegregation case that's 35 years old that was finally settled just 2 years ago. And part of that settlement was you have to give minority students ethnic classes that are focused on their ethnic background. And then we can close this case.
Is that basic? Are we headed down to yet another federal preemption kind of a thing here? I mean, is this basically federal versus state? This is what it's wind up to be?
Well, I think you give it a little bit of time because I think, again, there's a conciliatory tone coming from the new administration over at the Department of Ed as well as from the school district.
Yeah, but it's interesting with Diane Douglas. Everyone kind of thinks they know what they're getting, and I don't think anyone's quite aware of what they're getting right now.
Not really, no.
Well, we're only a week
Well, she
in,
didn't.
so.
Yeah, that's the point. We're still only. All right, before we get out of here, just in general, you guys have been around a long time. You've seen these sessions and things. In general, just on a scale of 1 to 10, there's no opinions here. Just on a scale of 1 to 10, how testy do you think this legislative session is going to be, either between governor and lawmakers or lawmakers amongst themselves?
I think governor and Republican lawmakers might actually get along pretty well, at least in terms of leadership. Between Republican lawmakers and Democratic lawmakers, maybe not so much, as we saw a little bit at the Chamber of Commerce luncheon that we were all at today.
Yeah, what about Republicans and Republicans?
Probably see some of that. Just like you mentioned, last year you had those 6 Republicans walk out of the budget negotiations and really stand their ground. We might see a little bit of that this year. I wouldn't be surprised.
And don't forget Democrats and Democrats. In the Senate, they for their 13 members, they have 2 whips. Usually, it's just one person, and I think that is there to appease somewhat different factions within that 13-member caucus.
It's ironic to have a minority party with 2 whips. I mean, how many folks you need to whip around there?
I think it's going to be a difficult year because of all the cuts. And every individual lawmaker has individual programs that their constituents really want them to fight for, and it could get brutal.
More brutal than we've seen in the past couple years?
Well, we'll be Medicaid brutal, but it'll be pretty brutal.
So not quite that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree, because at least all the indications are Medicaid was so brutal because you had the governor, in opposition to the majority of her own party, and I just don't see those dynamics shaping up. I think Ducey has really been working hard to reach out to lawmakers of all stripes, but especially the majority. And his chief of staff is a former House Speaker, so I think there'll be a lot more comity among COMITY, and maybe some comedy among them.
Thoughts? Same thing.
Yeah, I mean, there will be plenty of disagreements. I don't see any kind of bombshells exploding among these folks. More the year after Medicaid expansion than Medicaid expansion year.
So honeymoon should last longer than maybe most?
Maybe. I mean, it'll last longer than it did for Jan Brewer.
Okay,
I'm sure of that.
Longer than Brewer's?
No doubt. No doubt. The conservative Republicans like Doug Ducey right now, and he's going to, if he can keep them on board, this may work.
Agree?
Probably. Let's give it till Statehood Day. That's Valentine's Day, and we'll see how it goes. I think a lot will hinge on what happens with this K-12 lawsuit, and will Ducey push lawmakers to settle something that they don't want, as President Biggs said today. I mean, President Biggs is still arguing, some of the fundamentals of the case, which were already dismissed by the state Supreme Court. So.
All right. Well, we will see what happens come Monday. Good to have you all here. Thanks for joining us. Monday on Arizona Horizon, Governor Ducey delivers his first State of the State address. We will have the speech in its entirety, followed by analysis from political consultants. A special hour-long edition of Arizona Horizon Monday at 5 p.m. and 10. Tuesday, we're preempted for a special statewide broadcast on the dangers of heroin and opioid use in Arizona. Wednesday, state legislative leaders talk about the new session. Thursday, a legislative update with the Arizona Capitol Times. And Friday, it's another edition of the Journalists Roundtable. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.